I would first like to thank you all for being here today. This really means a lot to all of us. My name is Cooper Steele, and I'm a senior graduating this month in film production. And my thesis is appropriately titled, Is Cinema Dead? I would first like to thank Dr. Paul Stewart for listening to me talk about movies for months on end and relentlessly helping me pursue the answer to this question. And Justin Nelson with the library for helping find a critical apparatus for my study, as well as the School of Honors and my film professors Christopher Clark and Bethany Miller for always being a helping hand along the way. The main study of my thesis is derived from a conversation started by famous Hollywood director Martin Scorsese. With the rise of franchise films, sequels, and blockbuster superheroes, Scorsese has claimed that cinema is gone and that these superhero movies are not cinema. He does this through a tapestry of articles and interviews, but most notably in 2019 with Empire magazine, when his comments caused an eruption of debate in the industry of whether or not the most popular films in modern cinema can even be considered modern cinema. My primary goal here was to use Scorsese's criteria for cinema to determine if it is truly gone and dead. My research primarily consisted of gathering Scorsese's journals, interviews, articles, and essays, and determining the aspects of film that he thinks are lost to time and why they have been lost. Along the way, I also gathered responses to his criticisms from industry professionals, such as executives from Marvel Studios, who were at the forefront of his backlash in 2019. There are four main aspects that I was able to identify from these writings. The first one being money and box office. The second one being rise of producer and studio-led films being engineered to cater towards an audience, which leads into my third point, which there's a shift in the relationship between film and audience. And the last one being the most important one, the loss of directorial authorship. This last one led me to a theory known as Auteur Theory, which auteur means author in French. And it's the idea that the film is, it's a way to quantify the impact of the individual director on a film. The criteria are set in place to examine the idea that the director plays the role of the author in all the stages of the film. And this ended up being the leading apparatus in my methodology. My methodology is split into three main areas of study: box office data, examining the editing aspect of auteur theory through shot length analysis, and box office ranking percentiles between the two eras that Scorsese talks about, the first one being the 1960s through the 1980s, and this modern era, which is our 2000s to the 2010s, 20s, modern cinema. The data that my research yielded was that Scorsese's auteur-led films were certainly higher up on the box office rankings in the earlier age than the current age. And in the current age, we have these franchise blockbuster superhero films consistently on the top 10 from 2000s to modern times. Now, auteur theory proves through shot length analysis that there is a story-based difference between auteur-led films and studio franchise-led films. This metric does not determine entertainment value or audience popularity, but it does prove that auteur-led films typically deliver unique experiences to audiences, and studio-led franchise films are more likely to be formulaic and predictable to the audience. Now, the volume of films released theatrically has significantly increased from Scorsese's auteur age and the modern age. Initially in the 1960s, when this age started, there were about 100 films releasing every year. Now, almost every year, we have around 3,000 films coming out. Using this data and box office numbers combined, we can see that auteur-led films, interestingly, have not dropped out of the top 10% of films released theatrically in the last 20 years, even with superhero movies being number one at the box office. My conclusions are that franchise films are definitely the biggest money makers of the modern age. Auteur-led films no longer hold the top 10 spots in the box office. With this, auteur-led films definitely carry a sense of uniqueness and independent voice towards the audience that is measurable by thematics and editing through shot length analysis. They simply vary more in their individual experience given to the audience. But the box office data proves that auteurs that Scorsese has praised in the modern age are still in the top 10% of films released. They just don't hold the top 10 spots like they used to. This is due to both the rise of franchise films and, as mentioned before, the increase in volume of films from around 100 to over 3,000. I feel that I covered Scorsese's points relatively well and developed a thorough way of determining what aspects that he is correct on in an objective, measurable way. But one weakness is that many in the art world would consider this study to be impossible because film, as an art form, falls into a subjective arena most of the time. Now, there is so much more to uncover about this study. I would encourage future film researchers to bring in more box office data from other years and utilize auteur theory, which was developed in the 1950s that had a whole bunch more of criteria to it other than shot length. Shot length is just one of the aspects that is measurable, but there are plenty more. Of course, thank you for coming today and listening to me talk about movies.